Welcome back, everybody, to the second edition of the Zach Starr Show. I'm your host, Zach Starr. We have an extremely exciting episode in store for all of you today. First off, thank you to everybody that joined us on Monday. It was a really fun show. I had a chance to share about myself, how the show works, how we operate, and just kind of what type of topics we talk about, what kind of guests we bring on, and how you can potentially be a guest. So it was a really successful show. We ran an hour 20, so it was a longer episode than I imagine the majority of these are going to be. And we didn't even have any guests on. But from here on out until at least mid-October, we have guests signed up, excited to come on. We have entrepreneurs, we have health and nutrition people, we have athletes, and we even have investors, venture capitalists, angel investors, all of those. We have so much we're going to talk about, so many different topics. As I mentioned at the end of last show, it's important for anybody out there who's looking to have a successful life, interact with people, and for those specifically that are successful in the business world, it is crucial to be able to have variety, have an ability to talk about a multitude of different topics. So today we're going to be diving into a little more of my forte as well as our guests, specifically talking about business, life as an entrepreneur, more specifically having a startup, raising money, just life as a day-to-day basis, developing a concept, going to do prototypes. This guest traveled all the way down to Texas for development for his prototype. So there's some really exciting stories to tell today. Really excited for it. So without further ado, I do want to welcome in our guest, Mr. Jake Henry. Jake is the founder and CEO of Lectra Technologies, also a student at Westchester University, and does have some familiarity with what we're doing in regards to YouTube as well as TikTok. I would say he's probably just a little bit better than myself. Very successful YouTube channel so far. So Jake, first and foremost, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on today. It's going to be a really fun time.
Thanks for having me, Zach. It's good to be here. Appreciate you bringing me on, and everybody in comments.
Awesome. Yeah, comments are going to be interesting today. So it's going to be hard not to laugh at some points because some guys are going to be like that. But in all seriousness, I do want to start off today. I'll just tell a brief story about how we met, just so people have a little bit more background on that. So Jake and I are both a part of the Westchester University Cottrell Entrepreneurial Center. We have a common connection there, a good mentor of ours. And I've been talking to her for a long time, reached out to her last year for my company, Next. And she kept saying, oh, I got another entrepreneur that's coming on. Jake, he is a really, he's similar to you. He has a startup that he's working on prototypes, developing the concept, getting patents, all of those exciting things. I think it was at least 3 or maybe 4 months before I actually had a chance to meet you. I know we met in the library last year and had a chance to exchange ideas off each other. And even though they're two different products and two different markets, two different end users, there still are a lot of similarities when it comes to these things. So that's how we met. I know we've touched base a little bit between then. We do have a couple of events coming up. I know you have a few that you're going to for pitching your company, Lectra, which we'll get into in just a minute. And then, of course, we'll both be together at an event in November. That is something I will share here on the show a little bit later. But we will get started with that, just kind of how we met. Now let's dive into a little bit more about yourself, Jake. I guess you can talk about Lectra as well as talk about some other projects you have going on, specifically your YouTube and your TikTok.
Yeah, so like a little bit background about me. Thanks for the introduction, by the way. Name's Jake Henry. Like Zach said, I'm a senior here at Westchester. I have my own startup that I met Zach through the Cottrell Center. And I think there might have been a couple connections. I know Patty was one of them, but I think maybe Monica and maybe Robert too. I don't know if you know him, had connected us as well. Because Patty was telling me about you a couple, I guess, year and a half ago now. So like pretty much when I came back to school for my junior year, she was talking about you. So it's pretty cool that we connected and have stayed close since. But a little bit more about me. Like, yeah, I have a muscle stimulator that we're embedding into conductive kinesiology tape, and it's called Lectra. And we've been working on it now. Actually, we just passed the 2-year milestone of us working on it. And it went from, first of all, the idea stage when I was a freshman. I think it was my second month at college. I decided that there was something that I was missing or some sort of leap I needed. And I had played sports my life. I grew up playing soccer, basketball, tennis, football. I played it all in high school. And then I came my freshman year here and I was recruited for soccer. That's why I actually ended up coming to Westchester. So I played on the soccer team. I was hurt all the time. So I couldn't really play in the season. So I was like, this is not worth it. I was having problems with my calf and my hip flexor were the main two things. So I remember like I was sitting on the trainer's desk and he would put on their muscle stimulation stuff, and then he would just tape me up until I couldn't feel my leg anymore. So what I would do was like I would miss out on a ton of time whether it was like warming up the teammates or missing the first part, miss the first 30 to 45 minutes of practice because I had to stay so much longer than everybody else because I was in so much pain, and just it was an everyday struggle almost. So I was thinking to myself, like, hey, is there anything that I can do to kind of expedite the process or make it more efficient? And it kind of dawned on me that, hey, I use muscle stimulation all the time. Like, it's been proven for me at least to work, and has had a positive reflection of every single time I've needed some sort of rehabilitation or some sort of instance of recovery. So I was like, I could use that in some way, but I don't like wires. I actually hate wires. So I was thinking about it. Is there anything out there that is a wireless version of what already exists on the market? And at the time, there was no instance of anything that used wires to do some sort of neuromusculoskeletal or uh, muscular pathway of like electrode signaling. So I was like, oh, well, let me make this wireless. Let me see what I can do here. So I started researching different ways of some sort of wireless implementation of the electric pathway. And I started looking into different ways of doing it because I didn't want to do the gel electrode pad as well. I didn't like the idea of it. I remember using electrode pads. The main argument with that was that people had always said that, like, oh, I use the electrode pads and they work for like 3 or 4 times. They're good. And then they die out and I can't use them anymore. I have to spend more money. So people were really upset about that. So I was like, okay, well, how can I work around this? What's something else that sticks to people, but sticks for a while? And it came to me that, oh, either athletic kinesiology tape or something like a Band-Aid. I was like, is there anything I can do here to kind of combine everything together? So I started researching, and it was, I think my aha moment was the end of 2020 when I realized, hey, there's something I can run with here, and there's something this could potentially work. This is something we could do. So we started actually researching with a company, I want to say out of Collegeville, because this was starting in 2021. So I was in the business competition here at Westchester in 2021. I think it was either 335 people or 233 people were entered in that I ended up fortunately being picked first place for, which I used all the funding to use for the R&D, which actually got us to our first prototype. So that was really cool that Westchester was a positive influence on, especially the Contra Center was a positive influence on what I was able to do with the product. But going backtrack to the company in Collegeville here is like, I was really struggling on how I wanted to do it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, the best process of going about it. So we were talking to this company, and they worked with biomaterials and smart textiles and stuff like that. And they were saying, hey, like, we don't know what you guys want. We don't understand what you're doing. And it was conversation after conversation. We were talking to them for 6 months. We kind of had an epiphany moment with them, and it just ended up being that it wasn't going to work. We had gone down to their lab in Collegeville. We did testing. We did all sorts of R&D. We tried different ways. We couldn't get what we wanted to do with them. So I was like, well, what do I do now? And this is funny now because I met you were talking about how I traveled down to Houston. I actually met him through a connection from TikTok. So for you guys who don't know, I have a TikTok account, a YouTube account. I think it's just shy of like 500,000 followers on TikTok, but I do a lot of like news and business style content, entrepreneur style content, which Zach and I kind of coincide with here too, which is pretty cool. But I saw that there's one kid that was like in my niche space on TikTok that he was speaking for some entrepreneurial startup app. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of interesting. I kind of want to get on that. So I started talking to him, and I was like, hey, like, who'd you meet here that is running this app or this website? And he gave me a name of a guy who went to Penn State, which is crazy because this kid lived in Chicago when I was talking to. And this kid that ended up being really close friends with my older brother's best friend from the time they were in kindergarten. So it was like, it's a very small world. It's weird. But I connected then with him, and he explained to me what it was. It's called Entra. It's pretty much a LinkedIn, but specifically for entrepreneurs. So that was pretty cool. And then it kind of transitioned into they were having a pitch competition because they were celebrating their 1-year anniversary. It was like a big deal for them. So they want to have a competition, and it was for, I think it was like for $200 or something, or $300. So I signed up on their website, and they said that the top 5 pitches, like everybody posted a little pitch video, and they're like, the top 5 pitches are going to be picked to pitch in a competition. And was like, okay. So I tried to like start texting my buddies, texting my family members, hey, can you guys upvote me? Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? I had them all make accounts and upvote for me. And I ended up getting, I think it was like 600 people on, and they upvoted my thing. And I ended up pitching on their competition, and it was to 5 different venture capitals. And at the time, we had no prototype. We had nothing to really show. It was really the idea phase. And it was cool because like the one venture capital guy, I forget the name of the venture capital company, but it was down in Austin. And he was like, hey, I actually really like this idea. And I invest in a company that's obviously not similar to you, but I think their technology could coincide with your technology. And then the implementation of whatever you guys are doing here could be something that could be really useful in the industry and be a positive influence on both you guys. And he was like, I invest in this other company. I think that he said the fund was $100 million or something. And he had, maybe that was off, I'm not 100% sure, but he said that they invested in this other company, and he gave me their contact information. And I started talking to him in November of 2021, and we hit it off really well. We had a couple of meetings, and he was showing us how the tech worked. And I was like, oh my God, like this is exactly what we need here. And my business partner and I, that it's funny how I met him too. I can go into that, but he invited us to come down in Houston, which I actually made a YouTube video of it in January, but I never posted it because it's all the stuff with the patent we have to get squared away first before I can post it. But I have the entire breakdown of the whole trip. So that was really cool. And we were pretty much working out of a garage for like 4 days. Like we would get up at like 5 a.m. We would go to Whataburger. We'd get burgers to have for lunch. And then we would get, I think we stopped like a 7-Eleven or a Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is like this huge gas station down south. So it's crazy. It's like you pull up and there's 75 pumps all along. It's just trucks just everywhere, just lined up pumping gas. So what we would do is we would get up at like 6 a.m. We'd go get Whataburger, and then we get muscle milk from Buc-ee's. And then we would just go we would try, it was an hour and a half where we're staying. My business partner's uncle actually had a house in Houston, so we were only an hour away from him. So we would leave at 7 a.m. and we would get there around 8:30, and then we would work till like 9 at night every single night trying to do all of this R&D. And it's scheduled out on what I wanted to accomplish every single day, not expecting to hit any of the milestones we were looking to do, because the big thing was just like, is this even going to work with what we're trying to do? Because if it didn't work, there was no point in pursuing the next couple of days. You know what I mean? Because it was like to get the D, you needed A, B, and C all to work perfectly. So we got to part A, and on the first day, and the first test we did worked perfectly. I remember freaking out. We brought all this electrical equipment and stuff, and oscilloscope and magnetometers and stuff, and just like kind of doing all the readings and the reading the square waves, the output on the muscle, and seeing if we got some sort of feedback. And it was crazy. I remember the first time we turned it on and we saw that there was a square wave, we literally went out and popped champagne. But like
the champagne popping moment.
Yeah, but because it was cool. It was like the very first proof of concept we had. So like it was like kind of like the first time that the idea came to fruition and like showed that, hey, there's something here that's not been made before and that we can run with. So that was cool. And then day 2 came to like the testing. Like we were like, all right, so nobody's put this on themselves before. So what are we going to do now? And I was like, all right, well, I mean, obviously I had the idea, so I'm obviously volunteering to do it. And we had worked it in to create our own fabric. And then we started sewing into it, and we kind of like worked everything together and combined it with our tech. And I put it on my bicep. I actually have it in my closet. I wish I should have got it now. I could have done a demonstration for you on the stream, but maybe some other time. But it ended up working perfect. And again, it did the exact muscle contractions we were looking for, and it ended up being a really cool trip. And now we've been working with them for the last 8 months, and we've transitioned now into government contracts. We're about to submit a government contract with the NSF, and we're working with the school actually now to write the grant. So they have something called an IRB at the school. Well, there's IRBs everywhere, but it's a institutional review board, where what you do is a professor, primarily when they want to do research. For example, if a microbiology professor wants to do some sort of research on some bacteria, but they don't have the funds to do it, and the school doesn't have the funds to give to them, so they write a government grant to the NSF and say, hey, I want to do microbacteria research on some new microbe and see how it affects humans in this way or something like that. So they write a grant, do all the funding, do all the outlining, and then the NSF, they'd send it to the IRB first. The IRB would approve the study to make sure that nobody would get hurt and it would make sense to do the study and be beneficial. And then they would write the proposal to the NSF and submit it, and they would get it. They would get the proposal back around. I think if you get accepted, within 6 months, and then you get the granted funding within the next 6 months. So I think it's like a year from the time you write the proposal. But right now we're writing a grant for it's around $275,000 for phase 1. And then what's cool with the government stuff is like if you get it and the phase 1 trials, that's not a trial, it's not a clinical trial, but like if the phase 1 study goes well, you can transition then to a phase 2 study, which starts like the first round of phase 2 funding starts at $1 million, which would that's around exactly what a seed round would be for the average startup company. So that was pretty cool too. But yeah, I mean, that's like the general gist of where we're at with Lectra right now. So like that was pretty cool journey so far. And now I'm getting invites to speak at different conferences, and we're having our venture meetings now. And like I said before, like I've turned down funding opportunities. We're obviously open to it, but I want to see what we can get with the non-dilutive funding. Because there's another company in Philadelphia that we talked to last week. Actually, they're called Ben Franklin Tech Partners, and they work on convertible notes. So it's all non-dilutive funding, and they can pretty much, it's all debt equity. So like they can, what they would do is as if you raise their funding or the amount of funding for your seed round, and then you start raising like say a Series A, what you could do is they could buy in debt equity off of the last round. So they just like they convert their note for whatever it was in the first. That's what a note is. They convert their equity from whatever they give on the last round. So they look at the company valuation, they look at progress, and then they can convert their note from their contribution of funds to the next round. So we're talking to them, and obviously there's 2 others, Robinhood Ventures and Broad Street Angels. But we talked to a private investor first because like I'm very particular on who I want to get funded by and the way I want to go about it, because like one of the big things that tears a lot of companies down is the individuals giving them the money. Because like I spend too much time on Reddit and I see too many stories of how people get screwed over from the people who are giving the funding because of they either take opportunities away, they undermine them. So I'm just very like particular on who I talk to about everything and the way I go about the business with it. So that was another cool aspect as well. I'm trying to think. There's a conference I was telling you before we started. There was a conference in Philly that I'm talking at in September 15th. It's cool because they're doing it like a Shark Tank style. So what we're doing is obviously it's a health sports tech conference in Philadelphia, and what we're doing is we're going to pitch to these venture capitals. I don't know exactly how they're setting it up, but they told us that they're all going to come in, and there's going to be 4 of them lined up, and they're recording something, and then they're doing a like a showroom, and you'll come in, you'll pitch. They have money sitting on the tables, and then they're going to let you know, like the exact same way the Shark would do. They would rip it apart. They ask you questions. They give you investment or not. But that was pretty cool. And another thing too that is really cool to social media. Like I want to backtrack a little bit again. Anybody who's looking, like in the comments or whatever, looking to get into social media, like it is an insane experience. Like I didn't ever think that like I would be making videos of stuff every single day and millions and millions of people watch it. I would say across all my social medias and stuff, it's like, I don't know, 100 to 250 million probably people have seen my face, which is kind of scary. So I make sure I get nice haircuts, but it's also pretty cool. But one opportunity that arose from that is there's this company called TriCarrot, and they're a credit card company that's designed for creators. So what they do is, the big thing with creators is like the creator economy and stuff, and social media is becoming obviously a lot more popular, and more people are doing it with like the explosion of TikTok in the last 3 years. But a big thing with it is like the people who are the older generations, like I don't even know what they're called, Gen Y or the baby boomers and stuff, like they don't really understand social media like our generation does. So people see like this 24, 23-year-old kid driving a Lambo or a Porsche 911 and be like, what is this kid doing? And then it'll be YouTube money or something from Twitch or Patreon or anything along those lines. And they don't give them the credit of, because they base them off the normal kids. Like there's a whole different scheme of the amount of money people make, the amount of money that the opportunity is there. That's what social media is cool too. You can get the ceiling is so high. The limit is as much work as you want to put in. Same thing. That's why with entrepreneurship too. That's why I guess that you and I both have that same drive, the same feeling towards it, because there's really no ceiling for where you want to go. But what's also scary about it is there's no job security with it either. And that's why I think a lot of people are different in this aspect. Like, I think a lot of people don't have the entrepreneurial mindset because they don't really adopt it. Because there's one quote that I really like. It's slipping my mind right now.
I've probably heard it if you know any of the premise.
People let their fear of failure outweigh their desire to succeed. Yeah. It's Les Brown. He's a motivational speaker. So that's like the big thing with me is like kind of just putting your head down and going with it and just do whatever you can, trying to go head first into it. But talking back about the creator economy and stuff, what's cool about Tri-Carrot is you get accepted, and then within their creator community, once you get accepted for one of their cards, you have to apply for it, and they give it to you based on if you have some sort of, it's kind of undermining a little bit, but you have to have a certain social status and you have to have a certain amount of followers, and then off of that, they'll say, hey, you can have it or not. So they reached out to me and they said, we want to give you one of our cards. And I said, okay. And they just had something called Creator Supernova, which was a venture capital pitch where they would have creators come in and pitch their entrepreneurial ideas to other creators. Like, for example, I don't know if you know who Graham Stephan is, or Minx is a Twitch streamer. And then the CEO of Patreon was also one of the judges there. And they invited me to come come pitch at their next one in Los Angeles. I think it's in 6 months. So awesome. That was pretty cool. It was just a pretty cool experience to be invited to do stuff like that. But now the process we're at is just kind of prepping with the R&D. Like, we're working with another company out of Philly. I was in Philly last Tuesday, and I was in Coatesville last Monday doing all the R&D and trying to prep to get everything ready, because we're trying to transition now to a wireless prototype. And off of that, we're also working to write the grant, figuring out the pitch deck for the conferences, and just kind of getting all the finances squared away for the funding round for when we're ready to go 100%. So that's kind of like the gist of where we're sitting right now.
Gotcha. No, I mean, above and beyond as far as the details that you were able to get out there. It's when I hear you speak, I'm hearing a lot of the similar things that I've went through, and like you mentioned with the entrepreneurial drive, there is no job security in that. It's not as black and white as what do you want to do with your life while I'm an entrepreneur. It's not honestly a good enough answer for most people. It's a constant process. It's a bet on yourself above all. It's a bet on your ability to motivate employees or work with any of them to be able to get the job done, find the right people, and of course not run out of money. So, and for anyone who's watching who may have not had some of the clarity on some of those, when he mentions non-dilutive funding, it means they're not taking equity out, at least not now. Convertible notes are one of those things similar to a loan structure, but instead of paying it back, it could become equity. You get an option to purchase it. But overall, no, I mean, those three venture capital or angel groups that you mentioned, all three are going to be at that event in November, which is going to be a good opportunity to meet them in person and continue to talk. And overall, it's exciting stuff. It's not every day is going to be something that you can post about. And you know this just as well as myself. Not every day the prototypes are going to do great. It's not always perfect. But the days that you do get that are sweet, by all means, we should be sharing our wins and we should be able to celebrate them. At the same time, entrepreneurship, there are a lot of temporary setbacks, and they just grow and grow and grow. And for you, I don't know exactly what specifics regulations you're going to be cutting through, but once you look at your first regulation, it just piles on and on and on. And you too, you recently just made the company an LLC, right? So that adds on to the paperwork that you have to manage. It's like, all right, well, we're trying to build a product, but now we have members we got to manage and documentation that is even more so. So no, it's all good stuff. I pretty much knew about where you stood before. I did learn a few more things. I didn't realize you were talking to some groups, which is awesome. But like you said, I mean, especially in this industry, and when he mentioned seed round, it usually means you're past proof of concept, and now you're looking to get approvals and get a market. So where you are now, of course. I mean, if you could secure a grant, it takes time. That's just one of the beauties of our government. But it takes time to get those things approved. It takes time to get that money, but it's worth it at the end of the day. There's no doubt that what you're working on is something that is a need in the market because it combines a few things that already exist, but it also takes a new experience. Now, we're not going to, of course, dive into what makes it proprietary or anything like that today, but overall, a lot of exciting things. Patents take time, but the best thing that anyone can do, and anyone who's listening to this who either has a company that is about developing a new concept or is looking into it, it's really something that you have to take serious and invest in. Again, job security. You're going to work harder in this probably than almost any job you'll ever have. And it doesn't feel like it because it's what you do. It's your baby. It's what you started. It's your idea. And it doesn't guarantee anything, but that's not a reason to not do it. And especially in these phases, I mean, you mentioned you've been working on this for a little bit over 2 years. I've been working on my company for about 2.5. And I mean, neither of us are pulling in millions of dollars, at least not yet. We haven't even secured any serious funding rounds, but that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. It's a long process, and it's very educational. It's very informative, but it's also very humbling. So I will ask you, if you do want to give, I know you mentioned a few times about your pitches. What's your best pitch experience and your worst pitch experience? And the reason I asked the worst, not to out you, but for me personally, when I was at the Angel Venture Fair last year, the pitch itself went really well. But when I went on the stage, and you'll see how it works, you go on stage, you give a 30-second pitch. It was my first time because both of us were COVID companies, I call them. I probably did 30 pitches on Zoom beforehand. So the first time pitching in person for me was a interesting experience. So that's why I kind of ask if you do have a story where you were starting out pitching and it didn't go the way you wanted to, and then kind of bring that back to what you learned and then what the best pitch was for you.
Yeah, 100% I can go into that. So like, I think my best one was on Zoom. Well, I guess my best one wasn't even a pitch. It was more of a speech. So I actually really enjoy speaking in person as opposed to Zoom. I didn't really feel like I was even doing anything on Zoom. I felt like I was just kind of having a conversation with myself. So like, it was cool to be able to have the first in-person experience in real time. So I guess my best pitch experience was when I was down in Tampa in October 2021. I met so many amazing people, and it's actually funny that I was able to network with, I would say, the right people. That I just got accepted into the University of Tampa's accelerator program for the 2022 and 2023 year. It's not even the school year. You can't be they said you can't be a student and you can't be in. You have to be in person, and they made exceptions because the woman who was running the show enjoyed our conversation so much. So that was pretty cool. So I would say like my best pitch experience was down in Tampa for the CEO pitch conference. I did. I don't want to say I did really well because it sounds a little cocky, but like it was the first.
Well, go for it. Be open about it.
Yeah, the first I guess real display of like pitching in person was my best going, because it was a 5-minute speech. I got to speak in front of like, I think it was like 150 people, so it was a full room. It was pretty cool. And when the spotlight's on you, it's a great feeling. Honestly, I really like it. I feel like I flourish when I have the floor. So I think it was really cool. And then my worst pitch experience was on last Thursday. Actually, it was really bad. So we just spent like 30-40 hours revamping the pitch deck, and I didn't go over it yet. I just did it and didn't actually pitch through it, and I completely forgot I had a meeting. And this was for the sports conference next month, and he was like, "Hey, let's have a quick briefing and go over it and see." So I kind of just went extemporaneously. It was just anything off the cuff that I was thinking. Obviously, you can nail your 30-second elevator pitch every single time, but when they want you to give a 15-minute presentation, it was a little bit weary on the exact statistics and the mergers, acquisitions of other companies in the space and the market size. So, I mean, there's definitely room for improvement, but obviously this is my life, so I could throw something together there. But like, at the end of the day, there have definitely been better pitches out there. So it was my best and worst.
No doubt. And I mean, those are experiences I think where you can learn from a lot. And so, like you just mentioned, I want to keep going with that. When you said this is your life, it's a statement that if you haven't actually been, you could be an athlete or an entrepreneur, when something is your life and it just becomes second nature to you. I've had conversations. I mean, you probably had this too in the grocery store a parent or someone, hey, what you've been up to? I started this company. And then they start asking you all these questions and you just answer it without even thinking about it. It's like learning a new language. You've learned your company. You know it because you've lived it. It's different than if you're going into a company and you're doing sales, something I do on the side for consulting, and you have to learn about the company from the founders or things like that. You actually know it from the jump. Now, I will ask you this quick question, and I do have a follow-up. Are you have two people that work with you, right, in the company, or is there more?
Specifically, like we have our directory board, so there's 5 people there, but
Okay,
personally, there's 2 of us. So
2. Okay.
yeah, it was a funny story. I met my business partner. He actually I knew I needed an electrical engineer, and I reached out to like 150 people on LinkedIn. I was just looking up electrical engineer.
Exactly how I found my team.
The same message over and over to people, and there was one person that responded. It was a kid from Virginia Tech. So I was working with him for a while, and then he actually introduced me to his friend to bring on board, who was also from Virginia Tech. He didn't even really know well. He just worked on one project with him in college. And I pitched the idea to him. He was excited. He came on board. So it was the 3 of us, and then the other they graduated 3 years ago. So the one kid ended up getting a job, and he said he wanted to pursue that more because, again, with the job security. So I was like, okay, that's fine. It ended up being the 2 of us now for the last year, and he's working on Lectra. So he's a energy engineer, but he specializes in power electronics, electrical engineering, and then he's doing all the tech background and stuff for Lectra. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So, well, the reason I asked that is because it sounds like he's been with you pretty much since you started the company and you've been working on it. For me too, I had one come on from the beginning pretty much, but my chief medical officer, who actually used to work at Jewel, and then he had learned about the company. When you go through certain things with your team, sometimes they stop you and they go, I don't realize how we got to here. So one thing I've learned personally as a CEO of a startup, and it's probably something you learned as well, not everybody, especially investors, come from the same place as you. So when you might jump from one topic to another, or how I've done sometimes, jump from one topic to another, I'll have my chief medical officer say, wait, how'd we get there? You forget sometimes that, I mean, it's your life. This is what you've done. This is second nature. But the best skill I think any entrepreneur can have besides inspiring and motivating is the ability to explain your company in a way that even just a 5-year-old could understand. I mean, that's how it's been told. Make sure your elevator pitch makes sense. And I've had to fine tune that over the years. The amount of 30-second elevator pitch we've done combined is probably in the high hundreds, if not thousands. And the amount of repetitions and practice and the evolution of it, it really is an experience. And it's just one of those things you can't just sit in a room by yourself forever and try to fine tune it. You just got to go out there, see what works with people. Someone once said to me, oh, your product's kind of like light beer for e-cigarettes. I'm like, dang, that's actually kind of a good way to put it. And I've been using that ever since as one of my talking points. And so it's about going out there and pitching. The bottom line of that whole thing is don't ever be afraid to just go out and do it. If an opportunity comes up to pitch your company or to share it, I'm not just talking to you directly, anyone who's watching that does this, it's definitely worthwhile to go out and take a jab at it and listen to the feedback. I've gotten some great feedback, and I've gotten some really obscene, horrible feedback from the same pitch. I did the State Startup Challenge last year. I got past the first round, ended in the second round, and some of the judges were very excited, fully understood the concept, and then one judge had more of a bias against, I guess, vaping as a whole, which of course my product is kind of replacing that whole industry by giving lower and tobacco-free alternatives to the market. But just that bias kind of gave me some constructive feedback. And at first you kind of get all emotional and angry about it, but the next day I'm like, let me open that one more time. And there are some things that you can take away from that. I've only had 2 negative interactions with judges or one time an investor. But I feel like go ahead.
I feel like the negative feedback though is good. I mean,
it is. I tell people, I say, shoot me straight, give it to me harsh. There's someone that Patty knows that she wants to connect me with, and she said he's very blunt and harsh. And I said, good. Introduce me to him.
Yeah, I was gonna say the people who give you the negative feedback are the ones who are believing the most in your product. They want to see it be successful. They want to tell you what's wrong with it. Like they want to tell you what would make it market attainable for them. Like they would say, like, oh, maybe you had this and this would be more of a purchasing point for me, or if you change this price here, you did this, like this would be good. So the constructive criticism, I never get fed up with it. I actually appreciate it every single time. Like people, because I feel like the biggest problem or the most flawed characteristic in entrepreneurs, like when they either argue with venture capital or they have some sort of argument in personality. Like when somebody says like, you should fix this about this, instead of saying, well, what if I did this and this and this and this? Be like, okay, thank you.
Just take it.
Like,
Yeah, no, just let it. It's kind of like when you're like, I coach baseball now. It's something I've done for a while. And if a player talks back to you, I mean, you don't want a player talking back to you, whether it's in the heat of the moment or what. It's the same thing. If you're a player and you make a mistake, the first step when everyone's hot emotionally, or if you're in a meeting with an investor and they're asking you questions, don't turn it on them. Take it. And sometimes you can actually learn from that. You can't. There's something I've heard. I think it was Jeff Bezos who said it. Be stubborn on your vision. Know where you want to go. But when it comes to the details, you got to be as flexible as possible and as open as possible. I've had people tell me I should drop my company and just build a software where people can be supportive and help each other quit smoking. Not a bad idea, but certainly not as big of a potential as what my company is. I didn't sit there and say you're stupid. That's a bad idea. It was a good idea. It just wasn't for me. I listened to them, considered it, and there are some pieces of that meeting that still live in my company today. So that really, even if you don't raise money from an investor, at the very least, they usually do want to be helpful. And when they do poke holes, it's not to be a bad person or to insult you. It's a way of how they see it versus you. Because when it is your life and you do see it, it's extremely tough to take your blinders off sometimes and realize there are things that you have to adjust. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur, where no matter where my company goes or where either of our companies go or wherever our experiences take us, at the end of the day, the ability to take criticism for two reasons. Number one, be modest enough to accept it and not talk back. That should never happen with an investor. And then number two really should be taking that criticism and learning what you can do. My company has evolved so many times. I probably have 10 different renders and like at least 5 or 6 physical prototypes of nets that look nothing like it does now. And as a result of criticism, feedback, and conversations internally and externally, things have changed substantially. So you never know. One day you're like, for me, my company was supposed to come to the U.S., tightening regulations and just ways we view it. We're actually starting in the U.K. now. You told me that a year ago. I did. What the heck happened? But now when you live through it and you understand it, it really makes it makes more sense. And it's the ability to be open when it comes to the details, but being stubborn on your vision. That's what allows you to be able to be successful. And that's really the best pointer anyone can give from investors, potential customers, and anyone that you're pitching your company to.
Yeah, 100%. Improvise, adapt, overcome. And the other quote, like before I head out, is like the major arching quote with me is like, a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. So like the big thing with me is like, there's always going to be a way to get around the problem you have now. It's like in my life, like I came to college. A little bit of life advice, I guess, is like I came to college and I'm a chemistry major. So like I'm on top of the company stuff. I'm very busy doing stuff at school. So like it was just a progress of figuring out the time management and figuring out the best practice of getting everything done. So like I would go through it, I'd start freaking out, I would get anxiety. I ended up having to go to the hospital because I thought something was wrong with me, but they just told me I had anxiety from all the school. So I was like trying to figure out ways to like mitigate it and get rid of it. And now like I'm a senior, this is my last semester. Like I've learned that everything ends up working out the way you want it to. Like there's always a process of how things work and how you go about your life. And like I've learned that it's not worth getting fed up about things. It's just a chance to rethink, improvise, adapt, and overcome the problem you have now. It's like if you're looking towards the future of like, hey, like I don't have a good grade in this class. Like I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to pass. I'm going to have to do it again. I don't want to spend all this time next semester doing it. It's like, all right, well, what can I do right this second to put me in a better position of where I'm going to be 2 weeks from now? Is that maybe trying to get extra credit or trying to bring your grade up with revisions or getting the homework in or studying harder for the test? There's always something you can do to either get around the problem you have or through the problem you have and surmount over any obstacle you have within your life. So like it is really a learning process. Like, and they say like life is short, but obviously it's the longest thing you do in your life. So you're not going to figure everything out in one day. So just take it one day at a time. But thank you for having me. I have a super hard stop at 2.
Gotcha. No, listen, it was great having you on, and I'll definitely have you back soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. See you, Zach.
Have a good one, man. Thank you, Jake, for joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was really fun. Now, I'm a big fan of talking, but the fact that I got to sit back for over 20 minutes, over half the show, and just listen was really fun. And again, that's Jake Henry. He'll be back. Trust me, he'll definitely be back on the show. That was a really fun time. founded his own company called Lectra, some similar experiences that we've had in the past. And it really becomes a philosophy class in a way. Now, listen, I had a philosophy class last year, hated it. I don't recommend it. Someone's going to probably give me crap in the comments, or someone comes back to this, they're going to look at it and say, oh, you threw shade on that. But philosophy in itself, when it comes to the practicality of the application, which is the only thing I care about when it comes to learning, especially in school, there's a lot of good theories and philosophies that we talk about. And one of the things we said today is just talking about criticism, understanding how people work, why people work. And that really makes it extremely exciting. So as of the last time, I'm going to spend a couple minutes here opening up to the comment section. If there is anything you want to talk about, first things first, just some things for the week, what to expect coming up. Episode 2 today, it's been great so far. Episode 1, huge success on Monday. We are currently live on 4 different platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So far, everybody seems to be enjoying the show. It's really been an honor to just sit here and have people listen and take time out of their day to listen. Your time is valuable. I want to make sure that I respect your time and make sure that if you're going to listen to our show, that we're going to provide that for you. So that's some pretty basic information there. On Friday, we have Zave Smith on at 4 o'clock. We will be back with our Wall Street Bell and our ticker because the stock market will be closed at that time. So we will be able to have some live updates for you as well. Zave is a friend of mine that I met at the Angel Venture Fair last year in Philadelphia. He founded a company called Xbound. That's a company that is doing recruiting for experienced and semi-retired employees, connecting them with talent out there. So it's really been an awesome experience to meet with him. And we are booked again. We're booked through October. A couple of major guests coming on. Next week's going to be really exciting. So just stay tuned to the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Stay up to date there to learn more. So we'll be back right after this. We're going to cut to a quick break. We will do a market check. We will do a basic business analysis of what's going on out there. Comment on the suit. Let me know if you like it. I kind of threw it together quickly today. Friday, we're going to have a nice suit as well. So it's been fun. Stay tuned.
What's up, everyone? Make sure you join the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show weekdays on Facebook and YouTube to hear about all there is in the sports world. Celebrating the 3rd year, Zach Starr and Gavin Tony break down all the controversial topics from who is the real GOAT of the NBA to if the Phillies will ever make the buzz again.
Welcome back here on the Zach Starr Show, episode 2. Reading some comments here. Some people not loving the suit. I like it. I think it's a good mix. But listen, it is time for the market check. Let's take a look at how the stock market is looking today. There were 137,000 private sector new jobs added in the month of August. Despite that, there has been a huge decline across the entire market set. Not only are the composites down, we are currently looking at a pretty huge drop in all the commodities. Gold is down right now at over 0.5%. Oil is down 1.7%, down to $90 a barrel. Still extremely inflated from where it was prior to the last 2 years, really, the pandemic and the Russia-Ukrainian crisis driving up the price of oil as well. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is currently sitting at 31,622. That is down 0.5% today. The S&P is just shy of 4,000, down almost 0.5%. And then the NASDAQ at just shy of 12,000, and that is currently down 0.3% on the day. The biggest losers, we'll talk about the Dow specifically because that is the main 30 that I keep in my portfolio. Overall, I mean, some are doing all right today. Walgreens, McDonald's, Walt Disney, Walmart are all in the green. Goldman Sachs is dead even at 0. Goldman Sachs, no winners or losers so far today. The biggest loser, Salesforce, continues to tumble. Nike is down over 1%. Intel's down over 1%. Cisco Systems, Verizon, Caterpillar, Chevron is continuing to have one of its worst years on record. American Express down as well. Boeing, JP Morgan, some of the banks are also going down quite a lot. We'll see if we can find anything else here. A couple IPOs coming out, nothing major in terms of the industries. But overall, markets continue to correct. I do not know when this will end. Again, if you are here Monday, if we continue to have people that are interacting and commenting, I will do a live trade. I will do it from my phone on my trading platform, and I will do a live trade. We'll get some stocks. We'll probably maybe a bond. Let's see what we want to pull on Monday. But overall, as we've looked at, everything really is going down right now. There are more potential rate hikes, which has really been the huge concern. But let's talk about the Dow Jones Industrial Average again. It's down 11% in 1 year, 13% year to date. And let's just talk about how this is happening. Over the last year, it really peaked out at about 37,000. That was back in January of 22, a couple months ago. Since then, it's just been consistently falling. It's been falling down significantly. Remember, during COVID, the Dow was down at 18,000. 18 in March of that year, March 15th, 2022. Huge correction. And it inflated. It got up to around 32,000, which I think is around its true value. And it completely has begun to go down to 31,607. We're close to a correction on the markets. The markets are getting really close to where they should be. But I do think that prices still need to calm down quite a bit. I'm still not huge on going in the market. I will say this, though, and I read a very good article a couple of months ago, actually, why we are not in the same situation as 2008. Now, I did mention on Monday, we are in a recession. According to economics, the definition, we are in a recession. Jobs are disappointing. The GDP is slowing. It's not horrible. But I'll tell you this. Here's why it's different than 2008. The reason for that is because the banks are a lot more stable. They are not giving out toxic assets. The recession is a result of a combination of employees not going back to work, the lack of productivity, and the increase in importing goods from other countries. We're not exporting at the rate that we should be. So I'm not sure when that's going to be fixed. That's going to take some time. But the market correction is underway. We are currently witnessing it. It is hurting so far. Jerome Powell, the chief of the Fed, has been very clear that there is going to be some pain to come at the cost of lowering inflation. So we're going to see how that continues to work. If there is anything else, please comment down. There's nothing really worthwhile talking about here. Dean, I will respond to your comment. I don't know why. I would rather not brush my teeth the rest of my life because there are gums and mouthwashes and things like that that can keep your teeth clean, just to see a little bit of the fun that we see here on the market. So overall, let me know how you like the show. Today is August 31st, the last day of the month. Summer is almost over. It's still pretty hot outside, but August really is wrapping up here. Next time we have our show will be September. Again, we'll have Zach Smith on, who is the CEO and founder of Xbound, which is a company that is connecting semi-retired people, very experienced older folks, with companies that need to be are looking for employees. Of course, U Capital, similar firm in terms of the younger side of it all. So really going to be an exciting conversation on Friday. Next week, a couple friends on, a couple of potential, one who actually started a few different companies in a similar space to mine. And then we will wrap up next week on Friday. And then we will be doing a 9/11 show to commemorate 9/11. And we will have some more investors, a couple different business people on that following week. Again, we are booked through October. So if you want to be on the show, Zach, ZACH, at zlstar.com. Respond to us. We'll get a chance to get you on the show. To everyone who's been watching, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you all Friday, 4 o'clock. Zach Smith, founder and CEO of Xbound, will be here with us on the Zach Starr Show. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good one.